I'm recording now too, so I think the one that I sent you, I don't know if you were able to access it yet, but I don't think it will need much editing. It's basically already edited. So
yeah, I just added every institution, they sent me their brief introduction of what they're going to talk. So I replaced the names. So that's what we, yeah. Should we bring everyone in? Let me bring everyone in.
Yeah, I think so.
Hey, hello everyone.
Hi.
Hey.
Hello, thank you so much for organizing this. It's been very helpful. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Philip, were you at the first workshop?
Yes, I was here. Yeah, you all did a very good job. And thanks for sharing the PowerPoints. I got them like an hour after the program. And there comes my colleague, Barbara Drescher. She's also from Agnes Scott College.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi, thank you so much for sharing your
Hi, Stephen.
This wealth of knowledge with us.
Yeah, love to. Hey.
Well, hopefully we'll have a lot to share with you today. I think you'll find really useful. Today is kind of the practical day, you might say. So.
Okay.
Good morning, and me too. I want to express my thanks. That was wonderful the other day. Looking forward to today. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
I may have to mute myself suddenly because they're testing the alarm systems in the building today. So if you hear this sudden alarm going off, I'll have to mute myself because they told me they would be not doing it for the next hour and a half. So I'm going to cross my fingers that won't have to deal with that. But
let me share my screen. Do you see my screen? Yes? In the presentation? Yes. Cool. Yeah. All right. It's always tricky. Let's see. Almost time, I think.
we never take anything for granted in the age of Zoom. If it goes right, we're grateful.
Yeah, where's Bill? Okay. It's okay, still 1 minute left.
Yeah.
All right, okay, it's 1 o'clock. Should we get started?
So.
All right, Bill is here. Let me make him as a co-host. All right. Okay, let's get started while we're waiting for people to joining us. And Oscar, do you want to introduce?
Sure. Thank you everyone for joining us today for the second workshop of this 2-day workshop. I am kind of a representative of the working group on cultures and languages across the curriculum that sponsors these 2 workshops, and we as a working group in turn are sponsored or are funded by a grant by the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation and the Central New York Humanities Corridor. So I think we can go to the next slide.
Yeah.
If you weren't here, just very quickly, if you weren't here on Friday and you're not familiar with where this Central New York, where we are located, some of those, it's that little red spot in Central New York, right? And many of the institutions that belong to this or form part of this humanities corridor are located in this area. I think we can go. These are the member institutions of the Central New York Humanities Corridor. Many of these institutions participate also in this working group, and we can go to the next one. And in particular, the Cultures and Languages across the Curriculum Working Group has 4 founding members, I guess, in a way that we all participated in creating or giving life to this working group as part of this grant. We today have some representatives from each of these institutions, and I would let them introduce themselves so you get to know them and hear a little bit about what they do. And we can begin with Colgate University.
Hi, I'm Corey. I'm the representative from Colgate University. We have a Cultures and Languages across the curriculum that's run partly through my language center in conjunction with the provost office as well. It's small, and we have a kind of a core group that work together, but we're hoping to expand it, and these presentations have been very useful in helping us think about how we can expand that program.
Great, and I think we have a couple of representatives from Cornell University today.
Yes, my name is Angelica Kramer. I am the director of the Language Resource Center here at Cornell, and I am here with my colleague, Lisa Sansusi.
Hi, I'm Lisa Sansusi. I coordinate our languages across the curriculum and classes, and also Jumpstart classes, our special language learning initiatives. And we'll be presenting on these in more depth in the workshop today, and look forward to it. Thank you.
Great, and I'm Oscar Perez. I'm from Skidmore College. I'm an assistant professor of Spanish. I'm also the institutional representative of Skidmore College in the CLAC consortium. So we work very closely together. And well, we are all very involved in all the language instructors at Skidmore in the CLAC program, because it's run through the language department at my institution. And then we have representatives from Syracuse University.
Hello. Yes. My name is Amanda Brown. I am from Syracuse University. I'm also here with my colleague, Stefano Giannini. We are just starting a CLAC program and have been piloting work in architecture, history, and linguistics. And Stefano and I will be talking about that later.
Great, thank you, Amanda. And with this, I want to leave you with 3 experts. If you were here on Tuesday, you know they are great. And if you haven't, well, you are about to learn a lot and see how things are done across the United States with very hands-on examples, I believe. So I will leave you with them.
Thank you, Oscar. Let's get, so for our second workshop, Cultures and Languages in and Beyond the Time of COVID. And as Oscar just briefly introduced us, and we are the CLAC consortium officers. And also let's just quickly briefly introduce ourselves. And I'm J.Y. Zhou from the Stockton University. And I work as the Director of Global Engagement and Senior International Officer. And currently I'm serving as the interim chair for the CLAC consortium.
Okay, and I'm Bernd Esterbrook. I'm a professor at Illinois College, professor of Global Studies, German.
And I'm William Bill Pavlovich from Binghamton University. I'm the Director of Global Learning Initiatives, which includes languages across the curriculum, as well as the Global Studies minor.
A quick logistics, please be patient with technology. If we have any tech issues, we'll try to solve that, but who knows, it's always happening. And everyone is on mute, and if you have any questions, please raise your hand. Well, in the at the bottom of your page, the Zoom page, you see that okay, I actually cannot see that when I share my screen, but there's a button showing that you can raise your hand, or you can put your questions in the chat, and please use the chat section for introducing yourselves or ask any questions or sharing resources, even though we are presenting or talking to someone. But if you have questions, just put it there and we'll get back to that. Please be prepared for the small group discussions. And this for today, we'll have several breakout rooms for more group discussions and peer learning. You all received the workshop manual from us, and it is still a developing document. And so if you see any resources you want to know, and please send us a message in the chat or email, and we'll put that in the manual. For those who are not in the last Friday's workshop, and we included several information in that manual, so you can go back and check that. And also I shared the slides. This workshop will be recorded and we will share all the resources later.
All right, so let me talk a little bit about the agenda today. We're going to do a very quick recap on CLAC. We just spent a lot more time on that last time. This time we're presuming that most of you are familiar, but if you're not, don't worry. We have, again, some of their materials introducing CLAC principles in the PDF manual workshop manual we created. We'll talk a little bit about CLAC, but we're going to go on. Our goal today is to be as practical as we can. So we're going to deal with a whole number of CLAC cases, examples of how CLAC is actually practiced from a variety of different perspectives in different institutions. We'll have 2 7-minute breakout room sessions. And then at the end, we're going to have a thematic breakout rooms where we'll take a little longer looking at how to apply CLAC with a final wrap up at the end.
Great. And Friday, in part 1 of our first workshop, at the end of our session, we asked you to fill out a brief survey or just on a Google form to ask did you have any questions, or is there anything that you would like to have to learn, to see, to hear in today's session? And these are some of your responses. The Global Seal of Biliteracy, about using heritage language speakers as a resource, actually touching upon concrete course examples. What are students doing? Some of the questions they're engaging. What does the syllabus look like? And different activities and approaches. So we will be incorporating this into our breakout sessions and as well as into our presentations. So hold tight, and we'll have the opportunity to address your questions. We also asked about, if you can go to the next slide, please, JY. You also indicated in terms of where you were, in terms of would you like to develop CLAC? What would you like to learn more about CLAC at your campus? And so you were telling us a little bit about yourselves, and we appreciate your feedback. And again, we hope that our presentation today with all the different components will address your questions and your concerns.
Yeah. The very quick, as Bernd mentioned, very quick recap is that for people, CLAC is that we are making meaningful use of a language in the students' academic experiences. And we try to use the bi or multilingual and intercultural insights into all the students' academic, co-curricular, and extracurricular contexts. And then we advocate that CLAC should be used in all the different disciplines, in any curricular, co-curricular, and extracurricular context. And we also mentioned that for the CLAC, try to use that as an approach, as a goal that we want students to develop the authentic global perspective through the languages, through the cultures, and use the existing students' language, linguistic, and cultural background as resources for us to develop the global perspectives from just the programs that you all have. And so that's why the customize your program to meet the needs of your campus is a key. So we will introduce the CLAC cases and practices for today. And I want to go first with is a trailer or study group model, which is the most popular model for many CLAC campuses. And it's a pair between the content course, and we usually refer to that as a parent course. And then we'll have a trailer course, usually would be 0 to 1 credit, or a study group activities. Sometimes most of those campuses, they will do that outside of the parent course. Sometimes would be with credit or not, as students as a completing this on the transcript. Here's a model. You can see that a parent course, and then the students, we would survey the students about their linguistic and cultural backgrounds, and we can group different work study groups based on that one. And sometimes if we do have a lot of speakers, not really a lot, say that 3, 4 from the same linguistic or cultural background, we can group them into one study group. But if we do have 1 Arabic speaker, 1 German speakers, and we'll have a multilingual group, the communication would be in English, but the students would do the research in their different language. And give you one example. And one thing I want to mention really important is that usually the parent course professor should give a space, should make a space of the CLAC programs in their syllabus. And for example, the class presentation or to replace the final project or something, that's an incentive for the students. For example, one course is on nutrition, and then it's a multilingual group. We have 6 students speaking different languages, and the facilitator is an international student. It's a graduate student in the health sciences. So the students are familiar with the content and working with the students with the linguistic and cultural background. And here, the CLAC programs, the topics we discussed are suggested by the parent course professor. Sometimes they don't have enough time to discuss that in their courses. Sometimes they just said this will be good for the students to discuss. Here's what the activity they would do every week for that 1 hour outside of the class. The parent class is a think, pair, and share. Students would do some research about specific topics for each week. You can see that they have those traditional food or those, and then in the they are doing the research based on their own individual language background. Let me give you another example. You can see here is a history course. And we have students using Italian, Greek, and Japanese, and the topic is diaspora. And here is, you can see that the students, each of the students, they will do the research. For example, if they're talking about stereotypes, and the students would find materials that are written in Japanese, in Greek, and Italian about that, and they will report back to the whole class. So that would bring all the students, they are not familiar with certain languages or the cultures, they have an idea about that. All right, yes.
Great, thank you. So these surveys come out of Binghamton University's 30-year engagement and use of the study group model. And I was looking through the last 10 years of our surveys. And at last Friday, I shared with you some general insights from them, but here I wanted to show some numbers in terms of what the actual engagement or participation in a CLAC program, and we call that LXC at Binghamton for languages across the curriculum. What that means in terms of how does that translate in terms of student participation? What do they get out of it? Because we ask the students to self-assess, to evaluate the program as well as their experience, to sort of characterize it and to note what they've gotten out of it. So it's a survey that we send out to all students who participate in the Languages Across Curriculum program at the end of every semester. We have for these surveys for the past 10 years, 1,631 total respondents. Of those respondents, 33% of the students who participated in the past 10 years, they were born outside of the United States. And 57% of those students, of the total students, had at least one of their parents born outside the United States of America. So it's very telling in terms of, what type of student this program attracts. And 91% said that LXC, our CLAC program, increased their knowledge or interest of the parent course, as JY was saying, when we partner with a course, like in health and wellness or history or computer science, for example. So that through their participation, by using languages, that their knowledge of that discipline-specific subject matter was enhanced or increased. And 96% said that LXC gave them insight into multiple perspectives. Next slide, please. So continuing with these surveys, we ask a question: after participating in LXC, I am more likely to, and then students pick, as appropriate. So 97% said that they recognize the ways that culture shapes their perspectives. Interestingly enough, and we're very encouraged by this, that 84% would like to continue using their LXC language, the language that they use with LXC in LXC, by further studying it by actually taking a language course at a language department. 90% indicated that participation in LXC inspires them to study abroad and to go beyond our borders. 78% would like to use their LXC language in other courses, in other ways, right? Maybe not perhaps, in the class as a formal component, but at least to use it in terms of their learning. 80% said they would like to to keep using that LXC language with family and friends. Interestingly, 87% would like to use that language in their professional lives. And 92% of all respondents would like to take LXC again, or would at least recommend it to others. So I think this is clear enough, these responses here, that the overwhelming majority of students who participate in CLAC programs, they have a positive experience. And again, most of these are self-selected students, right? These are not yet, at least, they're not part of their general education requirements, right? No one is forcing them to take it for their major, for anything else. It's voluntary, it's selective. And when they do participate, they have an overwhelmingly positive and meaningful experience. And again, it's student-centered, and we'll talk about this in the other parts of this. But this is actually, I guess, the numbers speak for themselves. And I didn't manipulate the numbers to paint any particular picture. We're just looking at aggregate and very simple formulas here. So it's a key takeaway. Okay, let's proceed. Thank you.
All right, and as part of what we are offering today, we have a number of different schools that have these programs that are running, and I'd like to introduce some representatives from Cornell University, talking about flexible models of language instruction.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Bernd. Again, Angelica Kramer here from Cornell with my colleague Lisa Sansusi. And we have a few slides here that we would like to share to talk about our language across the curriculum program and our Jumpstart classes. So here we go. So at the Language Resource Center, we see ourselves as really a hub for language innovation and collaboration. You can see our space here, and we cannot wait to be back in that space, hopefully come August. Okay, we're not continuing. So our mission and our vision for the Language Resource Center, where the Jumpstart and the Language Across the Curriculum program are housed, is really to connect, support, and empower our language learners and our teachers. We've done that pre-COVID through providing physical and also virtual spaces. And we share a lot of resources and generally advocate for best practices. So our vision focuses around really raising the awareness of the value of language learning. And I think Languages Across the Curriculum plays a very big role in that. when we talk to our students, and I'm sure you all have the same experience here, our students are very interested in continuing with either a language that they've been studying in high school or bring as a heritage language with them, but their packed calendars and schedules really don't allow them to take a whole course sequence. So you can see two quotes from students here who want to maintain a language, but can't simply do that every day of the week. So that's where we really are looking at providing innovative and flexible ways through offering Jumpstart and language across the curriculum courses. So I think we really need to think about how we can disrupt this status quo. We need to speak to the needs and interests of our students and of the current generation. Students are very worried about debt. 28% of students actually have echoed this nationally. And they think of their credits as currency, and they don't want to take courses that, quote unquote, they waste their money on irrelevant things. So if we can allow our students to make these connections between various disciplines that really speak to what they are interested in, then we can reach them and we can convince them that this is something that's valuable for their future. So giving students this agency, asking for student interest, I think is an important aspect that we take in how we structure our language across the curriculum program. And of course, we, even pre-COVID, have leveraged technology to connect these different disciplines. So I'll hand it over to Lisa here, who will introduce our languages across the curriculum program and our Jumpstart program.
Thanks so much, Angelica, and thanks, Bernd, and the organizers for the opportunity. So languages across the curriculum program was started in the spring of 2016 at Cornell. We offer sections that are co-requisite with parent classes. They're set up as optional sections in languages other than English. They're primarily taught by graduate students in the disciplinary areas who are either native speakers or proficient in the target language. The content is focused on field-specific academic discourse and vocabulary. We have a number of goals of the language across the curriculum program, primarily prepare the students for their future globalization, multilingual and multicultural perspectives. And we provide teaching opportunities for graduate students in the disciplinary fields. We've developed a number of language learning objectives for the languages across the curriculum program, and we share these with the instructors. They share them with the students. Some of our instructors have translated these into the target language and included them in their syllabus. That gives them a good point of departure for discussions with their students about the sections. Several of these that really resonate with our students are the learning of the vocabulary in their fields. They find that very pragmatic and useful. And also they're very interested in the language across curriculum classes have been very attractive to heritage learners. They're very interested in world Spanish, for example, and the different dialects. In the fall of 2019, we were visited by Laura Papano, who's a journalist who focuses on education. She highlighted the program at Cornell and also at Duke, and we've got a link here. Some examples of language across the curriculum courses at Cornell. We try to set up classes across the humanities, social sciences, and natural sciences. So an example in the humanities is Italian for opera. In the social sciences, we have classes in government, for example, Spanish attached to the law clinics. And in the natural sciences, we have, for example, a spoken language section that is attached to a horticulture class on wine culture. This is an overview of the program by the numbers. We started in 2016. We're up to 14 languages, with the newest being Korean. We also offer Jumpstart language classes, which are 1-credit classes for beginning level students. These are attached to, again, to parent classes led by faculty who are planning short-term study abroad trips. And they focus about equally on language and culture. These are some photos of the programs, on the left in Tamil Nadu, on the right in Honduras. Some examples of the Jumpstart classes that we've offered are Indonesian for, we work with a faculty member in natural resources who works on conservation in Malaysia and Borneo. So we offer Indonesian with her in a lecture in Indonesian. We also we work with faculty in civil and environmental engineering who are focused on developing sustainable water treatment solutions in Central America. So we offer Spanish with them. This is an overview of the program by the numbers. We offer Jumpstart classes in 8 languages, all lictals except for Spanish. And these are some photos from the previous slide was photos from the Tamil program. I know many of you are interested in setting up language across the curriculum or CLAC programs on your campus. So in terms of the logistical considerations, at the Language Resource Center, we don't offer courses directly. We act as a unit that coordinates among different departments. So each of these classes, Language Across the Curriculum and Jumpstart, requires coordination among both disciplinary departments, language offering departments, often the graduate school because we're appointing graduate student instructors. The instructors for Language Across the Curriculum are primarily graduate students. In 90% of the cases, they're recommended to us by the faculty member who is interested in having one of these attached sections. In cases where we don't have an obvious faculty member nominating a student, I can usually find someone in a related field. We have a lot of graduate students who are interested in teaching these. For the Jumpstart classes, the instructors are primarily lecturers, for example, senior lecture in Indonesian or Vietnamese. Scheduling is worked out between with the help of the parent course professor and the instructor and the students. Both the Language Across the Curriculum sections and the Jumpstart classes are by permission only. So that makes it, so we control the enrollment that way. In terms of training, we work with the graduate students who teach in the languages across the curriculum program. We offer a workshop, and they work in their fields, for example, in government, but we talk to them about specific strategies for their Language Across the Curriculum classes, like error correction and recasting, for example. In terms of assessment, we visit the classes, do observations. The students, they're 1-credit classes, so the students will often do a final project, like a presentation at the end, or they'll talk about their paper that they're writing in the parent class in the target language. Of course, recruitment and PR is an ongoing effort. And technology is, of course, more important than ever. But prior to COVID, we had instructors who were being very creative. For example, our Portuguese Language Across the Curriculum instructor was doing Skype letters with students in Brazil. And we'd be happy to talk more about these components in the Q&A.
So bringing it back to considering students and their interests and their needs and their voices, we always ask for student feedback, which has been positive throughout, just like we've heard from William as well. But this student here, in one of her reflections on the Language Across the Curriculum program, talked about how the program really helped her grow personally, not only within her discipline, but being immersed in the language during the LAC course really has helped her grow as an individual. Similarly, those comments are reflected from Jumpstart feedback. I think this was a really interesting comment from a student in environmental engineering, talking about the importance of communication, and that really the Jumpstart program, along with the study abroad program, made that clear for him, that it's important to understand across ideologies, languages, and cultures. And I like that he pointed out that there is sophistication and simplicity, innovation and friendship, and beauty in engineering. So consolidating student feedback more generally, what we have heard from students is that it's really important to create community in their program. They were always really appreciative if their assignments was tailored towards something that they were interested in, that they were good in. Students also really responded positively to any tasks and assignments that let them create in the target language, rather than just having to practice, stilted dialogues. So anything that would allow them to bring in creativity was always favored by the students. They definitely recognize the importance to relate these language skills for their future jobs in the workforce, even if maybe they wouldn't be utilizing the target language, but just again, tying it back to the comment we just read about communication in general. And they also appreciated that a lot of the tasks utilize technology, because this will be a skill that they will need once they enter the workforce as well. So with this, we are done with our presentation, and I don't know at which point if we keep the questions all for later, but our email addresses are here. If you have any questions, please do feel free to contact us. Thank you.
Thanks.
If you have any questions you'd like to ask them, I think that, yeah, let's have a couple of minutes for the questions. You can also put in the chat.
Or if there is anything you would like us to elaborate on.
Yes, I do see questions. Yes. Yes.
Hi. My question is about the compensation for the instructors. Often it becomes an issue, especially at larger universities where there is a union. So, the work is regulated. And beyond that, I mean, we don't want to exploit the lecturers or the graduate students. And so I'm just wondering about who or what division pays for the compensation.
Lisa, do you want to take this?
Sure. Hi, Gyanam. I think you visited us at Cornell 2 years ago, right?
I love your center. Very good work. And I know a lot of people there, so that's why.
Thank you. Yeah, good question. So they all of them get paid. The graduate student TAs, we have approval from the graduate school at Cornell to appoint them for 5 hours or less, right? So their regular TA-ship is 15 to 20 hours. They're not allowed to work for more than 20 hours. So we do have approval for them to do 5 hours per week on a LAC section. And their expectation, we always tell them, is 50, that they're responsible for teaching one 50-minute section per week in the target language. And so often they're already teaching, say, Introduction to International Relations. So they're a native speaker French. They're already teaching 2 sections of international relations in English. They teach 1 more in French, which is often smaller, so it fits in. I also get permission from all the directors of graduate study before we appoint them. They've been generally very supportive of this. It works well when the graduate student is at like year 3 or 4 and they're past their initial 2 years or so of crunch, being in a higher pressure of their graduate program. As a rule, I don't appoint graduate students in their first year, which is a general rule in teaching at Cornell, that graduate students in their first year don't teach. We have had like one exceptional case of a student who was recommended, and she did a great job as a first year, and she's continued. She had a very small class too. So that's compensation for the graduate students. They don't get a full TA-ship. I always make sure that they already have a funding package. They get an additional stipend from us. For the language instructors who teach the Jumpstart sections, they are also given a stipend because it is an extra 1 credit, and those are approved by the College of Arts and Sciences. So everybody is paid.
Gail?
Hi, everyone. Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay, Gail, go ahead.
Me? Okay. So just to follow up on that compensation question too, is there an issue though with international TAs? Because they can only work a certain number of hours. So if you add on to their schedule, is that a problem, or have you not encountered that?
We haven't had that problem. I understand what you're asking. There were complexities with COVID because some of our students got stranded. But we were still able to continue paying them like halfway through the spring. That was like the most complicated situation I think we faced with international TAs, but we did have approval to continue paying them because they could not return to the US.
But you can pay them, like if they already have a full TA-ship in a certain department, you can also still then add on another, say, 1 credit compensation. Okay, that's
Yep.
interesting. Okay, good, thank you. My question, sorry, that wasn't my question, but that was a follow-up question. My question was if you could just talk a little bit more about your Jumpstart program. I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand the full.
Sure. So the Jumpstart, they're 1 credit beginning level language classes. So they're kind of like a very smaller version of like introduction, like so introductory Vietnamese is 4 credits. Then we offer Jumpstart Vietnamese, which is 1 credit and is similar to Intro Vietnamese, but is less contact hours and focuses on really just the essentials that they'll need to go to Vietnam. So kinship terms, greetings, how to bargain, how to, get about in the markets, things like that. So they're similar. Indonesian is like that, Spanish, basic context Spanish plus some cultural instruction. So they're kind of like the intro classes, but smaller version. And they are in support of particular faculty who have projects abroad. The very first Jumpstart was for a faculty member in crop and soil sciences, and it was in Kiswahili. And the students were going to Kenya and Tanzania. So that's how it started. And then we support the students in engineering. So often it's students outside of the College of Arts and Sciences, graduate students who don't have time to do full like Vietnamese language sequence, but they can do 1 credit Vietnamese.
Yeah, let's go with the 2 more questions.
Okay.
Yeah, Kaya, please.
Yeah, thank you, Joshua. My name is Pitya Palarajan. I'm actually the World Languages Coordinator at the Center for International Study, Ohio University. I was at Cornell University in 2017, and we learned a lot. I'm part of the Southeast Asian language faculty. So we also learn about how you help create a Jumpstart program. And actually at Ohio, we started to create all these courses as well for Indonesian, Thai, and also Khmer. But my question is, how, let's say I'm as a role, I'm in my role as a coordinator of the World Languages program for the LECTO especially, how can I facilitate and where do you actually recruit all the parent courses? Like, I mean, it would be an ideal for me, I'm excited to try this out. How could you share with me or with us here, how do you work with other faculty members in different disciplines to, maybe entice or even motivate them to work with us, to create CLAC's programs?
Great, thank you so much for the question. I'm so glad that you were at Cornell and worked with some of our faculty. I would just say generally in terms of recruitment that demand far outstrips supply for us. We have many faculty interested, many graduate students and undergraduates who are interested in these classes. So in terms of recruiting, fortunately, the requests often come to us and we are limited in how much we can support. But to answer your question, so back in 2014, 2015, 2016, there was a push for internationalization at Cornell under Global Cornell, Vice Provost for International Initiatives. And they launched an Internationalizing the Curriculum initiative, and that went out to all faculty. So faculty could apply for like a 1 credit add-on to their classes to internationalize their regular classes that they taught. And then through that, there were like 10 to 12 of those grants funded per year for faculty. And through that, I started working with those faculty of the Internationalizing the Curriculum initiative. So some of those faculty became faculty who wanted Jumpstart classes. Generally, their requests come to us though.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, we will at the end of the today's workshop, we'll have some breakout rooms, and we'll have time to talk about that. Anna, please.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I was just curious to know a little bit about the profile of the TAs that teach the courses for you, and I'm curious to know if all of them are language TAs, Or if you have, for example, somebody who is a graduate student of biology, but is a native speaker of Portuguese. And if you know, how does that work? If you have any advice on that?
So it's the latter of what you said. So the graduate students that teach the language across curriculum sections are graduate students in their fields, right? So they're usually 90% are nominated by the faculty member of the parent class. They say, I want a history professor who works on modern Chinese history says, I want a Mandarin language section, and I've got a graduate student who can teach it. So most of the cases are like that. In a few cases, they don't have a grad student who's at the right stage in their program, and I'll talk to them about, find another graduate student in a related field. So to answer your question, they are not graduate students in the languages so much as in the field.
And if I
yeah, go ahead.
If I can jump in real quick. So we don't conceive of these classes as language courses, right? They are disciplinary courses that happen in a different language. So it's more important that the expert in the classroom is familiar with the discipline. And that's why, as Lisa mentioned, we do training, and we do talk about basic best practices. How can you stay in the target language? How can you do recasting, instead of stopping the conversation flow? So some very basic SLA principles, but it's more important for us that they know what they're talking about. And Lisa, there was one more question in chat about letter grade versus pass fail, if you can address that real quick.
Yes, I saw that. Thank you. So the grading, we set them up as, it's called student option at Cornell. And the reason for that is because we set up these classes all across the university and the 7 undergrad colleges. So student option allows the instructor to talk with their students to say if they want a letter grade or a pass fail grade. And generally in arts and sciences, they like letter grade. In IL, industrial labor relations, they like pass fail. Engineering likes pass fail. So it's basically just a flexible structure. And I talk to the instructors and ask them to decide with their students what they want.
Yeah. Thank you. I see that, Carolina, you have hand raised up. Because of the time, can you put the question in the chat, and they would also respond in the chat. Thank you. Yeah. All right, let's, on with this. I want to also share with you another example, or be that, because from last Friday, I heard that several of you are doing the virtual exchange. So if you are not familiar with the collaborative online international learning, so it's a COIL, and many campuses, because of this COVID issue, they are not doing the study abroad, but many of campuses are investing in the virtual exchange. So if your campus are doing the virtual exchange, and CLAC should be part of that. So I here give you one example that at Stockton, we have a course on the medical cannabis, and we pair that with a university in Mexico. And then they will have synchronous meetings and also asynchronous chatting. And then the CLAC would be that from the very beginning, you can encourage our Stockton students to discuss that in Spanish with their peers. And also we will ask the students to find out how those things are reported in Spanish in the US. So that's another thing for them to find out more about the cannabis. And also the students are encouraged to discuss the differences, why the word choices when they're talking about that. What are those, the cultural meanings behind when those reports. So this is another example of that. And before we move to the first breakout rooms, and then I want to also emphasize several of those strategies that you might use. For example, to include non-English and non-US sources, right? If you are teaching a course, and ask them to write that for the essay as a reference. You can list at least 3 references from the non-US, non-English sources, or encourage students to find resources from outside of the US or the the foreign languages, and identify when you are checking with your teaching your course, identify those resources, existing resources in your classrooms. For example, those students coming back from study abroad, international students, the heritage speakers, or the students, they receive the seal of biliteracy in their high school. So identify those resources and ask them that whether they want to share what they found from the different linguistic and cultural backgrounds and contributing to the course content. Another part will be encourage students to keep a diary of news from international resources, right? And work with librarian and area studies faculty to create a web page with multilingual or cross-cultural perspectives. So these are different strategies for the content course professors that you can use to integrate CLAC into that. All right, so we heard several different activities or things, and we will introduce more different campuses, different practices. But before that, we want to have a quick breakout rooms and to see that, what do you think? You must have some ideas. I do see, yes, several questions we have. So what ideas from those examples that you think you might use that to apply to your campus? And for this time, we will do just a quick random breakout rooms, and I would put probably 5 to 6 participants in per room, and then okay, all right. So you will see that pops on your screen, and we'll set it for 5 to 7 minutes. Hey, Javier. I do know some of you cannot join a breakout rooms, so totally fine. Stay here in this room. If you want to chat, you can put in the chat. Okay. For those who are stay in this room, if you are willing to join the breakout rooms, you should see a message pops on your screen. If you cannot see that, let me know. to have wonderful conversations in the breakout rooms. If you have any thoughts or ideas, questions, please put in the chat because I really want to go through our practices and so save some time here. Let's go with Bill.
Sure, great. Thank you, JY. So we'll continue with another CLAC program, another way that CLAC can be implemented. And one of those ways is in global studies, or what we call global studies at Binghamton. And this was a program which was created initially for students from the university who were going on an abroad program and who wanted to basically deepen and broaden their engagement in their locale, or what we call their field site or their target culture while they were there. So in addition to taking courses at a local university or college, they would also be prompted to engage with the local environment to learn more about history and culture and society and politics and economics and all the wonderful things that come about learning another place in the world and its peoples and everything that goes along with that. And it's been a very successful and creative application of how CLAC can be manifested in different ways. And it still expresses the ethos and the practice of student-centered curriculum. So the content really reflects the student, right? Because the student is the curriculum. I mean, we talk a little bit about global studies in terms of this interdisciplinary, holistic approach in terms of how we can understand a variety of places, topics, issues, and questions. Each student comes to the program from their own academic training, because this is not a field in and of itself. It's not a department, it's not a major. It's a program that students participate that complements their existing field of study. So we have, at Binghamton, we have students from all of the schools in the university, from arts and sciences, engineering and health sciences and business, et cetera. And
Bill,
yes.
Bill, can I interject something?
Absolutely, sure.
When we designed this program, which was over a decade ago, we were seeing it as something that could, in principle, become required of all students who were going on study abroad, that it would provide them with pre-departure exposure to the language and culture, and then it would give them ideas for things in country, as we sometimes call them, and then a capstone experience when they got back, which is very much what the Global Studies program is designed around, those three components of study abroad. Can you tell me whether this is still the only program on the Binghamton campus that actually requires study abroad?
Yes, it is. And due to the pandemic, we have made a modification because we needed to respond and to adapt to the current realities. And being that all study abroad programs were canceled, were put on pause, we, recognizing this tremendous and extraordinary situation that the whole world finds itself in, especially our students, because most of our students were students who were studying in other places. We also accept international students who are studying at the university, recognizing that, or at least in our case, Binghamton University is their de facto study abroad site. But in responding to the situation by the pandemic, we have opened up temporarily the program to any student, any undergraduate student who wishes to incorporate, to add this cross-cultural, intercultural, international, global dimension into their program of study.
Have you been able to integrate virtual exchange or at least some kind of contact with people in another culture?
Yes, yes, we have. And so I'll get back to all of this now. The students who participate in the program, they come to it because they want to add a cross-cultural and global dimension to their own program of study, so to their own academic training. They're also, every student is required to engage at least one target culture. So for traditional study abroad students, it's that place where they have their program. For our virtual students, for our students who cannot travel due to the pandemic, they engage in virtual field work or online exchange, and they are still picking a part of the world where they will be exploring virtually, and they do establish contacts or interlocutors or informants in that target culture. And they also employ a target language, which would correlate to their target culture. We don't have a high not standard, but a requirement, minimum proficiency for language. It's basically the meaningful use of language for this particular program, for global studies. So some of our students have higher proficiency, more knowledge of another language which they incorporate, but we encourage for all students to use the target language as much as possible. And every student is selecting an issue that they find interesting, that hopefully would come out of their own academic training. So if they're a sociology major, something which hopefully would reflect or resonate with that, and something which could be useful towards their future endeavors, whether that be in further studies in graduate school or in their professional careers. So I have two examples here. We had a biology major. She was a pre-dental track. She went on an abroad program to England, and her focus was in what ways have British or English cultural norms and perceptions of beauty affected dental healthcare practices. And she wanted to be an orthodontist. And she was able to successfully merge social scientific and anthropological methodologies, theories, and questions. And she merged that as a biology major, as someone who's aspiring to go into the dental field in a wonderful, wonderful way. And even though, her study abroad site was England and English, but she was able to really, she made use of local idioms, of local phrases and local understandings, and here understandings of beauty. So it was really an in-depth exploration and understanding of a particular issue, but also it had that really strong cultural component. We had an anthropology major who went to Chile, and her focus was and she was looking at this wonderful expression by people of Chile, especially women, making these quilts, these tapestries, and these patchworks, and called arpillera, excuse me if I'm mispronouncing it, but how did that arpillera movement become a catalyst for mobilization against Augusto Pinochet's dictatorial regime and the assertion of women's rights in the community and the marketplace? So there are multiple levels here which she was incorporating, and she made tremendous use of Spanish in there and of local indigenous languages as well. So it allows for that type of exploration. Next slide, please. So through global studies, through a CLAC program, which is connected to study abroad and cultural exploration, it's about engaging different languages, not just different actual spoken languages, but languages of culture, languages of scholarship, and languages of critique. I have on two sides here on some of the headings or the types of assignments that we have for our study abroad students. One is focusing on culture shock and the whole relational aspect of a student from one part of the world and representing at least one or many cultures and going to another part of the world and making sense of that difference and identifying with that. And we're using that culture shock as a space for not just self-reflection and understanding of learning about one's own culture, but also obviously about learning other cultures as well. Public spaces, the natural world, visual component here in terms of having to look at different parts of society and culture and life, and recognizing this narrative and visual element. Also in terms of local idioms, catchphrases, and things in pop culture, how language is used locally and the different meanings and contexts that come about. And also a big thing, at least in anthropology, but not only, but is symbols. There's so many different symbols. There are cultural, there are political, there are pop culture, there are everyday life symbols that are around that we need to decode and recognize in terms of how culture is represented and how that changes over time. And through virtual field work, we really focus on intercultural exchange and interaction. We get our students' feet wet by interacting with international students who are at campus, and they have an exchange at first. So that gets them to recognize, you know, to engage and interact with others from different parts of the world. And then they sort of, they reflect on that. And then they start to, every student picks their own, I have TC here, that means target culture. So every student picks their own target culture and the topic, which they will use that, pin that for their exploration. And then we do ethnography from afar. So it's that virtual field work. And that entails locating and finding an interlocutor or a local informant, someone from the inside to get that emic point of view. And we have students engage diverse sets of data and sources, so target culture media, scholarship that comes from the target culture or that is written about the target culture, and if they have proficiency in the language, and that they would utilize that language, as again, the interlocutors, and field documents, anything that pertains to that target site, anything that pertains to that topic. So it could be, you know, an advertisement, a video, a podcast, a brochure, a commercial, a speech, anything that they can connect to their topic and to their target culture site that would enhance and aid their understanding of the topic, of the place, and of their research. And this whole journey, this process culminates in, as Steve just mentioned, this capstone project, which they make a wonderful merging of their academic training, their personal and interests and biographical backgrounds, as well as their future pursuits. And this has been the crux and the jewel, actually, of the program, because students do remarkable things. I'm amazed every semester at the work and the quality of students, and coming from different backgrounds, not just biographically and from different parts of the world and different experiences, but as well as different academic backgrounds, and how they're able to merge and apply these tools. You know, apply these approaches in their own ways, which makes sense to them and which is useful to them. So it's really one, you know, when we say creativity and customization, well, it really, it's put into practice. And when we empower students in all of our programs, they can shine. And when you give them that agency, as also Angelica referenced, that is a key part to their learning. And that's, you know, in a nutshell, what embodies a CLAC program. So without further ado, let's move on to Syracuse University. Thank you.
Yeah, let's invite Syracuse University to introduce their establishment of this pilot program.
Oh, thank you. Would you like us to share our slides, or? Oh, you have them. Oh, super. Okay, thanks. So we are really new to this. We just started thinking about things that we could start here in 2019. And we've done a total of 4 pilots. They have been, perhaps some of them have been a little atypical, but I think illustrate maybe what different institutions can do, and maybe think creatively what fits your institution. So we started our first pilot in fall 19 in linguistics using Spanish. Our second one also in the same class, it's a linguistics class in spring 20 in Mandarin. We spent some time trying to secure funding in 2020, and then started pilots 3 and 4 in history in Spanish and architecture in Italian. And so the first 2 pilots looked at a large lower division, worked with a large lower division, 150-person lecture with recitation type class, where we offered recitations in Spanish and Mandarin In Spanish, we had a mix of students with native heritage and second language speakers in the recitation, but in Mandarin, we only had native speakers of Mandarin Chinese in the recitation. And in looking at results from surveys that students took, the students reported that the experience was very rewarding. They reported being more active in those recitations in comparison with other classes, and they described being functioning bilingually and building this bilingual community in their recitation sections. The instructors who were teaching the classes, they were graduate students. As has been previously described, they also reported their own bilingual development in new contexts. So previously, they had just been using English in their academic disciplines, and they were surprised and pleased with themselves to be able to use, to talk about their academic disciplines bilingually. And we want to be very cautious with the final statistic here, because this is a self-selected group and it's just a couple of pilots, but we did note that the students in those recitations scored between 5 and 12 percentage points higher than the class average in these two courses. But again, this is a very tentative finding here. In pilot 3 that we are just coming to the end of right now, we worked with a class. We have kind of built a class within a class. So this wasn't a separate discussion section as we ran in the prior recitation sections, which were entirely separate classes. This was a really fluid breakout room type situation where students signed up in 4-week blocks to engage in reading materials, response papers, and discussion in Spanish in a history class that was focused on US-Mexico relations. And here again, we have that mix of native heritage and second language speakers. And we're just analyzing data from this now, but so far the students are reporting growth in listening, speaking, reading, and writing in Spanish. They also reported that working in or through another language has improved their understanding of the content in history. Several said a great deal, or it made some kind of improvement. They are somewhat or very likely to enroll in additional, oh, this is an older slide here, additional language and content courses, and they're likely to recommend a CLAC course to other students. So Stefano Giannini has been working with our 4th pilot in architecture, so he's going to come in and talk about that.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you. JY, can I go?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, please.
Yes. Okay. So as part of our exploration, as Amanda said, we are starting. We are new. As part of our exploration, we also wanted to see a different setting, a different way to deliver this CLAC classes. So here is pilot 4, architecture. Syracuse University has a center abroad in Florence. The Faculty of Architecture at SU has a program, well-established program in Florence. Every semester they send a large contingent of students who take 1 semester of architectural studies over there in Florence. So we decided to see if it is possible, what is possible to do with them. We went for a couple of public lectures. Lectures were delivered in Italy by local architects in Italian, and the attendees, students, but also faculty from SU or the other professionals attended the 2 lectures delivered in Italian with live English transcription, what we call with the acronym CART. What is new in this case, we took a risk, it's that the students were beginners. There is no language proficiency requested to go to study in Florence and in the field of architecture. So they were beginners, and we wanted to see how it worked. So we can go to the next slide. The preliminary results is that as you can see, the majority of the students have this positive view of delivery in the target language. The transcription, that was what we adopted, was again preferred to the other option of the oral translation. We did notice from their responses, but also because we attended the lectures, that there were some delays in the transcription. It's a technical issue, and the respondents noted it. And okay, we see how to, if we continue, how to address that. Nevertheless, the comments are, some of them are quite positive. They enjoyed hearing about the work in the linguistic context that it was written. Students said that it adds layers of immersion to study the work, and they enjoy the presenter in their native tongue. So this is part of our exploration of the options that we have in front of us. This was the one that focused on lectures delivered in Italian with the transcription in English. And then on the following slide, we discussed the challenges that, and some common theme that we saw addressed before in the conversation. There is a need of choosing the best model for institution, and also for level of language proficiency. For us right now, another issue is the funding for additional sections, and the funding for the instruction as another topic that was discussed in the workshop. I still am very envious when Lisa from Cornell told us that demand exceeds supply. It's not the case for us yet. We hope to get there. So in case of students, there is a good presence of students. Maybe the faculty interest from colleagues in our disciplines. We would like to explore ways to elicit more interest, and so that our colleagues do not see this CLAC program as yet something else to do, yet another burden because in excess of their teaching. So these are the challenges. We'd be happy to discuss them and to listen to your advice and suggestion. What we have also, these are the main challenges that you see written here. We realize probably they are not new challenges. You are probably aware of that, but we'd be happy to go over them and listen to the advice. Amanda, I don't know if you want to add to this.
No, I think you've captured it beautifully there, Stefano. Yeah. Okay.
Why this is our presentation of our brief experience with CLAC, and we are enthusiastically ready to move forward and include more languages, more students, more faculty.
Yes, thank you, Amanda and Stefano. At the end of today's workshop, we also have a kind of big themed discussions, and in that, one of that will be really how to get buy-in from, and how to from everyone, and including the students, including the faculty for this. Let's move on. Let's save the questions, and we'll have another quick discussion later. Let's see here. Before I move to this, do you have any quick questions to Syracuse? You can raise your hand or. All right, okay. Yeah, you can put the questions in the chat, and let's go.
All right, so I want to go very quickly with this because again, there's so much material, and of course, so much to read in so little time, right? We have the same problem always, but this is something for those of us in the languages who are looking for. We were looking at two issues. One, we wanted to get students at advanced levels to realize that what they had already learned could be applied in important ways, and also to begin really making personal connections with other faculty across the curriculum, demonstrating that what we had to offer in terms of our students' competence in the languages here would really actually help them in every single one of their disciplines. So we created this using an idea that we read from our interactions with the CLAC, this add-on course at Illinois College, where simply you can take any 4-credit course on campus. You can then add an additional credit hour to it, in which case then you have a student who does research in the language, in the case of the 4 languages that we offer at the college. And they then give a presentation in the original course about what they have found in that particular situation. So they work with a language professor, and typically the way this actually work, they spend about 3 weeks working with the professor, doing the research, translating and so forth, and then giving a presentation in the course, and their 4-credit course becomes 5. So in a way, part of the buy-in came from students who said, hey, I could go ahead and add this extra credit here for for not a gigantic amount of work here. And then the faculty, actually, we found increasingly that the faculty were interested in what could be discovered in their particular field from other language sources. And so we really helped to promote the idea of interdisciplinary, which again is interdisciplinarity is often an ideal that doesn't get realized because of the constraints of our curriculum, of the disciplinary boundaries and so forth. And this is one way to establish those connections. And in several cases, for example, we've created new courses out of an initial contact that happened with a student who, for example, was in history and wanted to do something in German. Through that initial contact, that history professor decided to go ahead and create a new course, which took further advantage. So it's one of the ways, in a smaller way, you can make those connections there and encourage faculty collaboration. And the next slide, please. One of the ways we do this is sometimes I've got to persuade the faculty that this is a good idea. It certainly is additional work here, but it's not a gigantic amount of work, and less actually for the faculty member in the discipline. But I would use this chart to kind of discuss some of the advantages here that are open to them. And the issues of translation, or an intro to professional language and the other language, different intellectual frameworks, the need for interpretation, internationalization. We talk a lot about it. Actually making it happen can be difficult. And we're increasingly involved in faculty student research, trying to get students to do important research and with a goal towards publication. And several of these they've started a process which resulted in student publication, which is also something that we're trying to move forward on, et cetera. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but I just think this is one small thing that in a small college like ours here, this is a way to start to kind of jumpstart the CLAC process. And what I can say is that we've had here in the last 3 years, we've had these add-on courses in finance, mathematics, history, economics, psychology, and 12 other disciplines. And these have been, and of these here, we've come into some other interesting connections, and there's actually been some curricular development that comes from this. So it's another way of thinking about it. If you're trying to get CLAC into your curriculum and there is some resistance, this is a small but actually rather effective way to go ahead and do this. And now it's become a part of our curriculum in a way. Before it was experimental, as they said, and now it's become a part of the curriculum. And now we have students who come to us and they're asking that they hear the rumor about this. And of course, for students who are interested in going into graduate school, this little credit can be actually kind of an interesting thing. In fact, I've had several students who in their graduate interviews for graduate school that they talked about what they did in this particular case. I had a student in mathematics, for example, who we did an article in mathematics, and I gave up mathematics somewhere back in 1978. But I helped them handle the German. They helped me handle the mathematics. We worked with the mathematics professor. And the interesting thing was we then found the author of the article. We did an interview with that author in German with them there with the student. The net result was then when they were applying to a mathematics department for graduate school, they spent almost the entire interview talking about what they discovered and how that worked. That was something that they found both valuable as students, and the graduate departments did too. Anyway, just a real quick look at that. And then I think
we have a question in the chat. Will be how would the language faculty being compensated for this?
So this is the problem. For the language faculty here, there's not compensation, no direct compensation for this. This is a question of, let's be frank here, survival. We've lost several majors. Again, the numbers have gone down. German is a classic example. Right across the country, German departments are dying. Our department's not dead. And one of the reasons why is because I've got some 10 different faculty who are arguing with the administration when they want to get rid of the last vestiges of German, saying, wait a minute, this is important for us in finance. It's important for us in biology. It's important for us in these areas. And the same thing has been true with Spanish, which is less overtly threatened, but also French. And my French colleagues actually got involved in this to a greater degree because they realized those alliances and those connections there are a great way to make it through a very difficult time for the humanities. And again, we're working on a humanities initiative at our institution right now, where we're looking for post-COVID, how we can go ahead and build on the idea that the humanities are integral to what we're doing, not an add-on, not something that is additional, but rather important, and helping we have now a cadre of faculty in other departments who are willing allies because of the experience that they had. And again and again and again, they say, when I first heard about this student wanting to do this, I thought, oh, I don't want to deal with this. What good would it be? They were shocked and surprised at what the student had learned, and also what the rest of their class learned as a result of this. And then they became willing allies here. So again, we're hoping to work in compensation for this. We're hoping to do that. But right now, it's in that sense a kind of a survival strategy and a way of making it difficult for the administration to proceed further down the path of relegating the humanities to the side.
Thank you. And we move to another quick case. We talked about study abroad, talked about Gen Ed, talked about language programs. And so we will hear from University of Utah and how they would support using CLAC to support undergrad international students. Blanca, do you let me not sharing? Do you want to share the screen or?
No, I don't have any anything to share in the screen, but yes, my name is Blanca Yahweh. I am the CLAC program coordinator for the University of Utah. I've been in this position for 4 years now, and I've been teaching for CLAC for 5 years in Spanish. And I am also a graduate student in anthropology. So that's basically the discipline that I've been teaching, and also environmental science. And what I want to share with all of you today is this experience with CLAC that we are implementing with the Utah Global students. Utah Global is a program that supports international students when they start the undergraduate degree at the University of Utah. It helps with their transition to a new country and a new culture, and for some of them to a language that is still fairly new. And as part of the Utah Global program, students have language labs, so they complement courses that are taught in English, and these language labs are also in English and are for them to be able to reinforce vocabulary and concepts of the main class. We have a class section for in Mandarin for Chinese students for the Sociology 1010 course, that is an introduction to sociology. And instead, these students, instead of attend the language lab, that as I mentioned, it's in English, they come to this CLAC section, which is taught in Mandarin, so it's their native language. And it's a great opportunity for them because they are not very proficient in English yet. So it's a good opportunity for them to better understand the concepts of and the subject of the main course. Yeah, we've realized this is like the third year, I think, that we've been implementing this in Utah Global. We have an excellent TA that is a Chinese sociology PhD student. And we did for the first time a focus group this spring to assess like how the students that were taking our CLAC section in the Utah Global program are doing. And we don't have the analysis finalized right now, but I was part of the focus group, so I can tell you that we got like a really positive response. Students really appreciate the opportunity to discuss the class content in their native language and help them be more confident in the main class, understand it better, and feel that they can succeed in this first year at the University of Utah. So that's this very specific part of the Utah Global Program. We have CLAC courses in other languages, in other departments that are like a more classical model of like a discussion class and taught entirely in the target language. But if you have any questions about this Utah Global Initiative, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, I just want to add one thing is that for the international students, usually their language, their native language are not really recognized in a way as a resource for their studies in the US. So this would give the students, and usually they are shy or they feel if they're using their native languages, they're kind of cheating in doing that. So this would give them a way to see that language really as a resource they have to understand the content courses.
Yeah, especially in that first year, right? That the transition can be hard, like being away from your home country, being in a different language, meeting like new people. So that has been like a positive experience so far.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Let me move on to. Okay, if you can see my screen. Yes. Let's quickly get to another quick. Oscar, do you want to introduce that with a CLAC as another different model with an independent kind of research section?
Sure, and I do have like a couple of slides.
Oh yes, let me stop sharing.
Okay, so we are a little bit different institution from the previous examples. We're a small liberal arts college, so our size limits the kind of offerings that we have. We don't have graduate students either, so that resource is not available to us. So the model that we have for language across the curriculum looks a little bit like this. So we offer standalone courses, like a LAC course, as we call it, and then students enrolled in that class are in charge of making the connection to another one of their classes they are taking. So that a student enrolled in a LAC course, for example, can choose to work with a course in anthropology, and another student in the same section could be working on something related to biology, for example, or working, doing research related to their thesis or senior project or something like that. So the connection is made by the student. And there are many, as you can see, there in one single section, there's a lot of people working in many different areas. So how does that look like in real life? So we offer courses, 1 credit courses, so basically an hour a week at the intermediate level. So they have to have intermediate proficiency for this to be enrolled in one of these courses. We also have advanced courses, we offer them less often, and they meet 2 hours a week. So these are 2 credit courses. And we offer them in the 6 languages. These courses are offered by the Department of World Languages and Literature. So they emanate from a language department, and we offer them in the 6 languages that we regularly have classes in. Not all of the LAC courses are offered every semester, but most of them are. So one of the things, or the peculiarities about our model is that since we don't have TAs, language professors are the ones offering these sections, right? So, on a rotational basis, basically. So if we offer one section of intermediate LAC every semester, a different instructor would teach that every semester. One of the things that in related to compensation is that they are incorporated as part of our teaching load. And these courses count towards a regular teaching load. I think this works a little bit different at Skidmore than other institutions, but instead of having course teaching loads, we have credit teaching loads. So in an academic year, we are supposed to teach 18 credits, which is a combination of 3 credit courses, 4 credit courses, 1 or 2 credit courses like LAC. So when you bring all of this together, these courses are part of this 18 credit teaching load that we have at the Skidmore. Because of this, the compensation, it's kind of part of it. It's not a problem. It's not a problem for us at Skidmore. And it has been a program that has been running for a long time too. This program is, as I hinted, is research oriented. So basically what we're trying to do with this is develop research skills in the students that are enrolled in these classes. We tell them what kind of databases they can look into, what academic language particularities in that particular language look like, or other things that we find useful, how to cite, how to reference, all of these things. So of course, there is no emphasis on learning the language, but like gaining the skills, research skills in this other language that they are doing. We offer them every semester, as I said, but for more popular languages like Spanish, we have every single semester at least one section of this, which is always or usually full. So we have sometimes wait lists, and other languages it's not as full, but or not as often, but we do this frequently. And one interesting thing about these courses is that they are a required course in some other programs across campus. So when this program started getting popularity, language faculty members were very good at creating partnerships with other programs, and they are now like students in business, in international affairs, in Latin American studies and Latinx studies. They have to take one of these courses to satisfy a requirement in their majors or minors. So this is just a quick overall description of what we do, but certainly if you have any questions, I can answer them.
Yeah, if you have any questions, you can raise your hand or put in the chat. Looking at time, yeah, please put in the chat. Probably don't have enough time to discuss about that. I do see several questions. Yes, Craig asked about this would be a consortium working on that one. We were talking about that, right, really several years ago before at the Denver conference, CLAC Denver conference. We were talking about for some languages are really not that popular for many smaller programs that we can work on some projects that we can have some this kind of co-teaching or this projects. But love to talk more about that. All right, let's move on with this. Considering the time, let's get our next breakout room sections and to here, after you heard about those different kind of projects, and we try to argue that, as we talked about at the very beginning in the Friday's workshop, would be we have those challenges, and we see CLAC would be a wonderful solution to really tackle those challenges. For the students in the CLAC programs, they develop all those different skills, right? Language proficiency, the content, as one of the questions was on the CLAC versus traditional language courses, and also the disciplinary knowledge. For the parent course faculty, the students feel they are more motivated to learn their courses, and their interest in that content course increased, and they contribute back to the course. Usually the faculty would ask them to do a presentation or projects and help all the students. For the facilitators, as several of you mentioned, that those are usually, for many programs, are the international graduate students. They see this as a wonderful professional development process. So it's a program, they learned a lot of the leadership. They, even though we had trainings, right, talking about teaching versus facilitating, and also several questions you had would be, you are not a language major, but you have the native proficiency, but how you actually teach the language. It's not really teach the language, using the language. So that's another thing I think that for many facilitators, they are going to go through, and they really enjoy that process. For the language programs would be that expanding the value of the language on campus. And for more students that they would not come to the language program to take the language courses, they see how they can actually use the language, how they can connect what they learned in the past with the language to what they're learning in their different programs. Content programs would be, as one of our responses, we're working on those AAC&U value rubrics, right? Those global learning intercultural competence through CLAC programs, that one of the learning outcomes is that student develops this intercultural competence. For the institution, this is a wonderful approach for the internationalizing the curriculum. As American Council on Education, they recognize the CLAC as one of the effective approach. And I think that, as we try to argue, is this really low cost? We're developing resources that from the campus, right, try to identify what are the resources you have on campus, who are teaching content courses, who are the language faculty willing to work on this one, what are the study abroad programs, who are those students groups, who has those seal of biliteracy, right? Those are something. So with that,
maybe real quickly just pop in here, because I think one of the things about CLAC that I found useful, I'm in an institution where we have demographic challenges, enrollment challenges, and of course this is reflected in curricular choices and many of the things, and especially as I mentioned before in the humanities, there's a real challenge there. One thing that CLAC has done, I think, that's really helpful for us is that it keeps us focused on the future. You know, we're coming out of the pandemic and there still are consequences of that, and we're going to be dealing with that over the next couple of years. And I doubt that we're ever going to return to what we have called normal at any point in time. But I think what CLAC does, and you can see here in these win-win situations, it offers us alternatives, opportunities. It points out potentials that in many cases that our institutions have not yet been realized. And they're there, they're available, and they also conform to the real needs our students are going to have in the coming decade. And so the thing is that what CLAC allows us to do is to be thinking forward rather than backward. We could go ahead and, in the languages and in the humanities, I could go ahead and conduct funerals for the losses we've had over the last couple of years. I'm not interested in the funerals. I'm interested in ways we can demonstrate practically and deliberately how we can demonstrate our utility in the humanities, in particular, how language and culture is, again, something integral to what we do as an institution. And so it allows us to be thinking forward in that regard, and allows us to go ahead and to make arguments so that when things get better, and knock on wood, let's hope that it's going to, when they get better, then we can start moving ahead and repurposing, rethinking what we've done, especially in the humanities, I think, and be prepared for taking advantage of opportunities when they come. So it's a positive response to a very difficult situation.
Yes. So we are talking about now, you probably would have a lot of questions around those different kind of, we put here with these several things that we really need to do to get CLAC off the ground on your campus. Getting buy-in from administrators, right, would be, this is something that if you don't have CLAC programs, how to convince the provost office or this to invest in, not really financially in that way, but they need to make the commitment to develop this. Or if you have an existing one, how to expand the CLAC programs. So you need to get buy-in from those administrators or the faculties, deans, and everyone.
And to find actually someone to work with, find a potential partner, to find either faculty or program or department or an administrator that would first of all, that would value some type of CLAC involvement or some type of program, and then to actually enable that, as Bernd wonderfully just said, to be focused on the future, right? We are not, how can CLAC, how can these programs, how can they be used to address problems and as well as potentials? So many different people in different departments will recognize the value and need, if they're smart enough, in terms of this globalized cross-cultural, intercultural experience and engagement for themselves, for their own research, for their own classes, if they're faculty members, as well as for their students. If they're deans or if they're department chairs, they're going to recognize the inherent multicultural and shrinking world that we have, that we are communicating and working with and studying with different peoples and places. And so this need, it's not it's a luxury thing. Well, yeah, it's a nice endeavor. No, it's actually a necessity. And if we can parlay that in different ways, then we can, and I would hope at every campus, there would be at least a few people that would recognize that. So it just entails creativity, finding like-minded people that we would be receptive, and then getting something started. Again, easier said than done, but that is the task. Bernd, could you?
And you know, the one of the things in a time of shortened means, it's difficult to get money from various sources. But one of the things that CLAC, I think, helps us do is to reevaluate what we already have, to look at it and to find existing resources, to relook at the campus. I mean, just recently, this last semester, part of the language and culture course that I was teaching, using a lot of CLAC principles, I had students fan out across the campus here talking to faculty about their experience with other languages, whether it's research, professional, personal. And, you know, it was interesting because I got a huge number of faculty who really appreciated being asked, who were interested. And of course, the students were surprised. And I guess the thing about it is I identified, every time I teach that course, I identify 4 or 5 faculty for certain purposes for the global studies program and department at my college that I didn't know about before, right? I mean, CLAC is a way of opening up, uncovering things that are already present. And again, since we are all, most of us are not flush with huge amounts of funding, then we have to make the best use of what we have. And CLAC can really aid in that process in a very practical way. I think last but not least here, this point 4, promoting CLAC programs to students. One of the nice things about CLAC is that when students are doing CLAC, they tend to see this themselves. I mean, you know how it is when we tell students things, they in many cases roll their eyes, right? They're not going to accept it just because we said it. Then when they experience it, when they see it, when they do the kind of work in these programs, they become then adherents of the program. They become promoters of that program, and they work on administrators and faculty. They become and more actively involved. So all those pluses there are huge. And so we have to get these students to realize the possibilities. And then also the biggest resource for helping students understand about these programs is students who've been through it. They come and they give their own testimony as to how important or meaningful it was, and then they bring other students on. So it builds over time, and that's one of the things that I think we need to do to make CLAC really get off the ground.
Yes, so build on that one, we have, 12 minutes left. And we want to have breakout rooms, and we try to go with the themes based on your perspectives and your background and the programs you are interested in developing on your campus. So we will have 3 breakout rooms, and the first one is the CLAC and language programs, and the second one is on the internationalization with buy-in from administrators. And the last one is on the general education content if you are faculty in the different disciplines. So we will open up the 3 different breakout rooms, and you can, on your screen, you can choose which one you want to go to. And we will have probably, 7 minutes discussion, and then we'll have a wrap up and share some thoughts. Let me open up that. On the screen, you should see that, and you can choose which room you want to go to. Bill, I would assign you to the room. And
Okay, yeah, me too.
okay. Yeah, I will assign you to the room. So yes.
Okay, we've got a good group here. That's you never know how it's going to be with these rooms. You're thinking, well, I hope I'm not the only person in the room. All right, let's wait for a second for anybody else who wants to show. I think. So let's open it up and let's see what people have to say about, I mean, the relevance to language programs and CLAC. Questions or comments or things that you've seen where you said, I'd like to try this out in my own institution.
Since I think Gail, since Gail is here, I think that there was a question. Did you ask a question about international TAs at the very beginning? Okay, I realized you were asking about their visa status. So there's a prior step that I should have articulated, which is that we have a lot of international graduate students, they apply to Cornell and their visa status is taken care of by our International Services Office under the Vice Provost for International Affairs and the graduate school. So by the time they come to us, they're like any other graduate student. They can TA, they have a TA package and they can TA, they're supposed to work 15 to 20 hours a week. So we don't get involved with the visa status. I think your question was, does this jeopardize their visa status by giving them those extra 5 hours of the extra credit? So I hope that answers the question.
Okay, so but they don't have full TA ships in other departments then?
The TAs we work with? Yes,
Yes.
they have a regular TA ship in like government, for example. And as part of that, they're expected to work 15 to 20 hours a week. We can add the CLAC section because it's expected not to be more than 5 hours a week.
Okay.
So the expectations, they work 15 for the regular TA ship, five for us. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
If I may just add to that, so it's not a restriction on the compensation, it's a restriction on the number of hours and they cannot work more than 20 hours. So as long as you're able to limit it to 20 by adjusting like 15 here, 5 there, or 18 here and 2 there, it cannot go over 20 hours, that's all.
I would be interested in hearing from somebody who has already taught a CLAC or LAC course, like, for example, in a language department or together with a language department, and what were like certain like activities or things you did. For example, did you focus on translation, or did you focus on like the students came up with the, so I will teach a LAC course and I have never taught one. So as an instructor, who is usually a language teacher, but who should not focus on language right now, what is my role? Am I just a mediator? Am I just there to like help them going through their research project? How did you approach this?
Hi, my name is Naomi Larson. I teach at Cornell, and I teach Japanese class, and I'm a Japanese instructor. And I did the flat course with Zen Buddhism class. So what the students did was like, so this is not language class. What they are going to do is they just come up with a vocabulary list by themselves, and then they hand them out to me. And then once a week, I have a discussion section. So I come up with the questions that they can discuss. So it's just a discussion class. Topic is happen to be parent topic. But then now I'm hearing idea from Bernd. I'm sorry, am I saying your name? So I was actually now thinking about have them do the presentation too. So one of the frustration as a language teacher is that they do discuss sort of. My students were intermediate level, just barely finished the second year. So there's such a limited stuff they can discuss. So they use the vocabulary, but not well. So I'm actually kind of thinking about to have them do the presentation. So
Mhm.
at least they can choose one person from the Buddhism topic and they can do the presentation. But anyway, it's ongoing struggle.
And I would say here that the presentation is helpful also because this shares with the rest of the students, and it's an overt declaration. Look, this student is doing this, and usually there is some really interesting or unusual perspective they're bringing, and they got this from this language, and the English only students are looking and saying, wow, I mean, they have an example of the advantage that's here. And of course, it does bring in also the issue of translation, interpretation. There's a whole number of issues we can use. So I'm working as a language teacher, helping them with the vocabulary, helping them with, if they're doing science, for example, scientific German, for example, learning how to work through with that. And then again, how to communicate that to other people. And that makes it relevant to them. So there are a number of different ways that works. And a lot depends on the student and the issue, but I try to be more of a guide. I give them, open some doors, when they're looking to do the research, where they might find it, the resources. And then when they're working with it, when they run across those difficulties, I can help them with that. And it's like with the mathematics. Again, I'm no mathematician, but I learned a lot of mathematics, higher mathematics, as a result of working with that student. And it became more of a partnership, which is also a lot of fun too, because the student then no longer feels they're no longer in this completely subordinate position, which is wonderful. That's why student faculty research can be so rewarding in that sense, and add the international dimension, and it gives them a certain special thing that the students in other faculty research don't quite have.
I totally agree. I don't teach them, I just guide them.
Yeah.
And I don't correct them. And then they can just say whatever they want to say, but they enjoy using a language.
Yeah. We got one more minute. I'm afraid our time, as is always the case with these sorts of things, but any other comments or questions? And if you do have comments or questions, I sure hope that you will contact us and send them on our way, because we would like to do some follow-up. Yeah. Jean.
My apologies. So I was just wondering if anybody has tried, I'm at a community college and I'm thinking if it might be possible for us to incorporate a LAC course as a 1-credit honors course addition to an existing section. Has anyone ever done that before? I'm just trying to figure out how can I make this work?
Do you have any LAC classes now?
We do not.
Okay. We haven't done them as honors classes. It generally function as sections of larger classes, like regular sections. Are the language faculty interested in partnering with the faculty in the disciplinary areas to do like companion classes?
I think they might be. And the reason I'm thinking about the honors idea is just that it already kind of exists. People know what that is. It's an add-on credit. I feel like if we sort of take it through that way, they can kind of understand what it is. I don't know.
I also have a very quick suggestion, which is to, pair up with a university in the area. Like we at UCLA, we have several community college language lecturers that interact with my center, which is, on pedagogy focused center. And we have some funding to support them. So that way they can interact with, experts and a larger audience.
That's a great idea. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? All right, then we'll return to the main room then, I guess. All right.
Thanks, everyone. Nice
All right.
to meet you all.
Nice meeting you.
Thank you.
And just a comment on the using the surveys. I found that when you use the surveys within, the people, the regular group that listens to you all the time, it doesn't always reach those whom you really want them to do. So if you have a survey and you have data about the student diversity and student interest in different CLAC offerings, then have an event of this. Might have a webinar, invite specific people, send them specific invitations for those whom you think their understanding of what you're offering is useful. Just invite them to those events so that they know that you have you have done the homework, basically.
Yeah.
And it depends on their interest. Some of them will be just interested in getting the data from those surveys to showcase what the university or the college, the student population on the college. And others will be interested in exactly the kind of work that we do.
Great. Sorry for the very brief breakout discussions. We always really run this over time, but try to end on time considering everyone's time. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we have really our last piece. Well, wrap up in just 2 seconds. For the contact us with the CLAC consortium. It's a totally free consortium that you can see that just a bunch of our passionate about the CLAC project. And so if you are interested in joining us at the CLAC consortium, please let us know. And yeah, we probably should have another section talking about all those projects you want to develop. But thank you so much for joining us today. Bill and Bern, do you want to say?
It was great to see everyone, and we apologize that we didn't have enough time to get to engage more of your questions and your discussions, but we are available. Please reach out if you have any particular questions that were not addressed or responded to during our workshops. We would be more than happy to be in communication, and we look forward to spreading the word and helping you as much as we can on our end here.
We, as a consortium, we are a community here. It's one of the things where one of the goals of this consortium is to bring together people who have this in common and define those resources. I just know for myself that this organization has been really helpful in keeping up my morale in rather difficult times. And I think that's one of the things we can do, is that we can help make connections between people who are geographically distant and so forth. We can help them make those connections, which will help each of us in our own way make these better programs and meet the challenges that are going to come up in the next couple of years. So thank you very much, everybody, for coming. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
We will send you slides and resources later.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. All the best. Be well,
Thank you
everyone.
to our sponsors.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Daniel, so good to see you.
Yeah, it's been a
Yeah,
while.
good to see you, Steve.
Nice seeing
Yeah,
familiar
hello.
faces here.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye. All right. Okay. How's that? Yeah, Amanda.
All right.
See you, Amanda.
We cannot hear you. You are muted. You are muted.
You're muted, Amanda.
You have to stop the recording before I start yelling.
Stop the recording.
I will stop the recording.